this Kristen Jacobson.
So we all know that feeling. You're faced with a problem, but instead of doing something about it, you analyze it from every angle. You dissect what went wrong or why it happened and maybe how unfair it is. But then somehow after all that thinking, the problem is still there. And that's because problem-focused thinking keeps you stuck. Instead of looking for ways to fix things, you actually get trapped in overanalysis and frustration. So the alternative, solution-focused thinking, really shifts your mindset to what can actually be done. And that small shift can change everything. So in this video, I'm going to break down the science behind these two ways of thinking, why our brains naturally lean toward focusing on problems, and then how to retrain your mind to think in a more productive way. So for starters, problem-focused thinking happens when you put all your energy into analyzing or ruminating over an issue instead of figuring out a way forward. So you spend time thinking about how bad the situation is, what went wrong, why it keeps happening. And while some analysis can be helpful, too much of it can make you feel stuck, overwhelmed, and powerless. So let's say you're struggling at work because you keep missing deadlines. A problem-focused approach might sound like this. Why do I always do this to myself? What's the point? It will never get better. I'm a failure. So you can see that none of these thoughts help. They don't lead to action and they don't make the problem smaller. Instead, they just create additional stress, making it even harder to move forward. So our brains have this built-in tendency to focus on problems, and that's thanks to something called negativity bias. So this is actually an evolutionary survival mechanism where our ancestors had to pay more attention to threats than to positive things because a person who ignored danger back then didn't survive. So our brains evolved to prioritize problems. But the problem is, in today's modern world, most of our challenges aren't actually life-threatening, but our brains don't know that. So when we focus too much on a problem, we activate the amygdala, the brain's fear center, which then releases cortisol, the stress hormone. And so this makes us feel anxious and overwhelmed, shutting down the logical problem-solving part of our brain. Solution-focused thinking, on the other hand, is about shifting your attention to what can be done, so action-oriented steps. So instead of ruminating about the issue and feeling this sense of helplessness, you focus on small actionable steps that actually move you forward. So going back to the missed deadlines example, a solution-focused approach might sound like this. I will make a plan and stay committed. Stay grounded and take one task at a time. Or I know I can ask for help. This kind of thinking activates the prefrontal cortex, and this is the part of the brain responsible for problem solving and logical thinking. So when you focus on solutions, your brain shifts out of that stress mode and into action mode. So even though solution-focused thinking is more effective, problem-focused thinking tends to be our default. So why does this happen? Number one, it feels productive, but it's not. So thinking deeply about a problem feels like you're doing something, feels like you're taking action, but if there's no behavioral action to follow it up, then nothing actually changes. Number two is the fear of failure. So if we focus on the problem, we don't have to take risks, right? Trying solutions means there's a chance of failing or it not working out. So our brains don't like this. So we stay stuck in this cycle. And number three is overwhelm paralysis. So when a problem feels too big, our brain just kind of shuts down. And instead of breaking it into steps, we sort of just marinate in that stress, which exacerbates the issue. So how can we shift from problem-focused to solution-focused thinking? First, you want to catch yourself in the loop. So the first step is awareness, as with anything. So if you notice yourself spiraling into thoughts like, why is this happening to me? Or this is so unfair, then pause and ask yourself, am I focusing on the problem or looking for a solution? Number two is to ask the right questions. So instead of asking, why is this happening? Try, what's one small thing I can do right now? Or has anything worked before that I might be able to try again? Or who's out there that I can ask for help? Number 3 is to break it down. Big problems feel overwhelming, which just keeps us stuck and it leads to a lot of procrastination or paralysis. So we want to break the issue into small, manageable steps. So instead of thinking, I need to get in shape, which sounds like an insurmountable task, try, I'll go for a 10-minute walk today. Number 4 is to reframe the situation. So your brain believes what you tell it. And instead of thinking, I always mess this up, maybe try, I've struggled with this before, but I can try a new approach. And then number 5 is to take imperfect action. So perfectionism often keeps us stuck in problem-focused thinking. We tend to wait for the perfect solution or the perfect time, and this stops us from making progress. So start with literally any action, even if it's small or imperfect. Just as long as you get the ball rolling, that's what's important. A personal example of how this shows up in my life is that I tend to get shiny object syndrome. And what this means is that I'll see a new opportunity or I'll get an email with something really cool that I want to learn about. And then I tend to take on too much because I sort of dedicate my attention to whatever that new thing is. And then I have a lot of other things that are left unfinished. So this creates a lot of stress and overwhelm. And when I notice that I'm in that state, I really work on sort of grounding myself and taking a step back and then asking myself what I can actually do. What's an action step that I can take? And what I typically end up doing is that I will look at my calendar and I'll block off time for each task so that I can complete it. And I'll look at, what's more in alignment with my values or what's a priority or what is more urgent and time sensitive. And those are the things I'll work on first. And then all of the other stuff I can fit in later. So while problem-focused thinking feels natural, it rarely helps. And solution-focused thinking, on the other hand, moves you forward. Our brains are wired to focus on problems, but with practice, we can shift into a more productive mindset. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, ask yourself, am I stuck in the problem or am I looking for a solution? That one question can really change everything. If this video helped, hit like or subscribe and let me know in the comments what's one problem that you tend to overthink. I'll see y'all next week.